Hello, everyone. This is Felicia. I'm back with another interview on the Kind Curiosity podcast, where we have the audacity to be kind. Miss Melissa Maloney is the founder of a venue called A Gathering for You. It is a venue dedicated to honoring the memory of loved ones who have passed on in an affordable way. So think about when someone has passed in your life and the only options you have are either a funeral home or a church, and you don't want to do either. If you happen to live in the greater Green Bay area, you now have another choice, and it's called A Gathering for You. It's an awesome story, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Melissa, thank you so very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's talk about what is a gathering for you. Tell our listeners what this is all about.
Yeah, so a gathering for you was inspired by losing my daughter Sophia back in 2023.
Oh,
When I lost her, I realized real quickly that the industry really was quote unquote old, in being that the only options were churches and traditional funeral homes, which are very expensive if anybody's ever had to do a funeral, and two, just very traditional. And I realized real quickly that I wanted to make a change in the area and offer something that was a new and refreshing approach to saying goodbye to our loved ones. So, a gathering for you was inspired by my daughter, but it's been so impactful to many in the community with being another option that's, lighter and brighter and more affordable, and something that really is, has a special place within the community.
thinking about what you said about the gap that you noticed that was missing. So, is your venue religious based? Can it be religious based? What differentiates you from a funeral home and a church? Because I will say, even when I go to funeral homes, I see a lot of religious based procedures in the funeral home. They don't even ask me what my religion is. They just put theirs in there, and I always thought that was kind of odd that you wouldn't ask the person what religion they were. So what is it about a gathering for you? Do you offer that service? Do you put your own religious views into the service?
What's fantastic about a gathering for you is there is no one way or another. So, what I mean by that is if somebody wants to do religion, they can. If somebody wants it where it's a non denominational, they can do that too. So, the space that I offer, we do a 3 hour celebration of life block. You can use the space how you want. That was one thing I wanted to pull away from with the traditional, the funeral homes and the churches, is it really was standardized check boxes and, they say what they want to say. I wanted to pull away from that. I wanted to offer something where you can use the space however you want. So we have people that sometimes will bring in pastors. Sometimes it's just family that speaks. And sometimes there's nobody that speaks. Sometimes it's religious, sometimes it's not. And I really truly feel like when somebody passes away that you should be able to honor them in the way you want to honor them and in the way that they want to be honored versus what the standard is, right? So they come in and they say, "Oh, well, I want to have a non-religious ceremony." That's fine. They can just plug in some music that they like on our Bluetooth speaker system and just kind of have a party and not have it be so traditional.
I love that. And I appreciate that. We definitely need more of those because it feels like when you do have to have this service for someone that you love, the options are very limited. So I appreciate that. Unfortunately, with your loss, that's what gave you the idea to do this. Talk a little bit about the process of getting this started because I don't know about you, but you lost a child. And that is one of the hardest losses in life to have to endure. But through that loss, you created something beautiful for others. And that is the whole point of the Kind Curiosity podcast is to highlight people like yourself who have the audacity to be kind in spite of. So, in spite of your grief, you turn that grief into something that is beautiful and that can benefit others. Talk a little bit about how you walk through that process.
Okay. So, When I lost Sophia, my daughter, we went the traditional funeral home route. And, when I walked in the funeral home, I just knew right away that this was not where I wanted to honor my daughter. I couldn't do the tiny casket. It was too heavy of an atmosphere for me. And, when I started looking around our area, there really was not any kind of venues or spaces that were around where you could do something that would be more of a celebration of life that wouldn't be in a traditional funeral home. So I searched and searched, couldn't find anything. And I talked to my husband, and we both kind of agreed that really, the standard was really low in our area for places to gather. With the celebration of life in my building, I really want people to understand the difference. So, in a traditional funeral home, you mourn the death of the individual. They're usually there, usually in a casket, sometimes they're ashes, and you're really focused on the moment of death. A celebration of life in my building, I don't want it to be focused on the death. There is so much more to a person's life than the moment they pass away. When you're talking about a celebration of life, I want people to be able to eat the amazing food that their family loved. I want them to be able to listen to their favorite music. I want them to be able to celebrate their loved one how they should be celebrated and not just the standard of the industry. Using the loss of my daughter to make this venue really is near and dear to my heart. I pour a lot of pride into every single celebration that we do because every life matters. And it doesn't matter if you have a ton of money or not, you should be able to celebrate your loved one in a meaningful way. So that's what we do at a gathering for you. We take our grief that we have from our daughter and we turn it into something beautiful, and we're able to help so many in the community. And within the past year, we've already had, thousands of people come through our venue that are just overwhelmingly happy with the outcome of it and the way that we're doing things because we're putting a new spin on an old industry. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. And for me, it helps with my grief because the building is dedicated to my daughter. So every single celebration I do, it means something to me too. So it's a beautiful way to be able to honor her legacy as well as everybody else's that comes through my building.
My gosh, Melissa, I love that, and I'm trying not to get emotional here. I think so you're a disruptor. I work in tech or used to work in tech, and you're what we call a disruptor. You are looking at an industry that has been the same way for generations, and you are saying, "No, we're not doing this." And one thing that struck me, you said, and it didn't dawn on me until right now. You said when you're at a funeral, you're focused on that moment of death because 'cause you're looking at that body or looking at the ashes and everybody's somber, everybody's just down, even though you'll sometimes see obituaries and it'll say celebration of life, but that's not what you're doing. You're
Mhm.
just, everybody's grieving, falling out on the floor, whatever. But in your venue, what you do is, okay, there is no body, there can be ashes, but you have a slideshow, you have pictures, you have people coming up and talking. I even saw stuffed animals there for kids, and you have a candy cart. You are literally celebrating the life of that person and not the death. So, speak to me about some of the unique things that I think are just awesome about your venue. I noticed a tree there. Let's talk about that. And again, you had the candy cart. And I also noticed that you have a kitchen, even though you don't cater, but they can bring in catering. So let's talk about some of those unique aspects.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the building is the
Uh-huh.
flexibility of it and the ease of it. So, I really truly wanted a space where people could just easily come and set up, easily have a celebration and not have it be so stressful. So, a couple things that we did to make the space a little bit brighter and lighter, as you'd say. I don't have anything really dark in there. My walls are all white with lots of windows. When I was trying to find a venue space, windows and sunlight was a huge thing for me because I didn't want it to be a heavy atmosphere, right? We also have Sophia's Coffee Bar, we call it. It's a coffee cart that has flavored creamer and yummy coffee and stuff like that. Just another little way, because who doesn't like coffee, right? Um, We have a candy cart, like you said. So every celebration, I stock a candy cart full of candy. One thing I love too is when I'm kind of learning about the individual, I always ask if there's like a favorite candy that they had. And if they do, I usually buy a little bit of that candy and stock it on there, put a little sign, oh, this was Henry's favorite candy, right? And having that on there, that's just a little special thing. I mean, who doesn't like candy, right? Um, we also have a feature that when I built the building, or redid it, I should say, I wanted something that was just different, that would make something stand out a little bit more. So we ended up putting colored lights in the building along the perimeter as well. But we had a really cool celebration of life where somebody loved flamingos, and they put flamingos all over the venue, and we lit the venue up in hot pink. I mean, it was so cool because nobody has ever had celebrations of life like that before, or like we had somebody that was an avid fisherman, so we lit it up in blue like the water, so that's a really cool feature too. We can kind of change the lights and light it up, and everybody wears their favorite color. And as for the kitchen area, that too is another great thing. Most venues in the area require you to either buy their food or go off of a preferred cater list. The reason they do that is because they make a little bit more money from it. And again, I want to change the industry in that. I don't think when people are grieving that they should be quote unquote nickel and dimed for everything that they do. So I have no required caterers. You can use a caterer or you can do a potluck. I mean, back in the day, going back to the roots of what used to be around, people would just bring dishes and it'd be a family gathering. And that's something that I really love seeing when people come into the venue and they have those potlucks and I see all the amazing food from different family members. And "Oh, I made this for, my mom because she loved it." And, that's what it's all about. Like celebrating them as a person and tailoring it to who they were as an individual versus a standard checkbox. So it's a really cool venue. I love it.
Mhm. So let's talk about that tree.
Oh, I
'Cause
forgot about the tree.
I that's okay. One of the first things I noticed when I walked in was this massive tree. So let's talk about the tree.
Yes, I love the tree. That was a splurge on my end for sure. It is made by an artist, and it's a copper infused tree, and it's really big. It's about 8 or 9 feet tall, about 5 feet wide. And anytime anybody has a celebration of life for their loved one in our venue, I personally would burn their name on a leaf, and the family members put that leaf on the tree, and it just stays on there. So anybody that comes through the venue, they look at the leaves and they see all the names on there. And one thing I really like about it too is every leaf is different. I don't do a standard like laser cut image or anything like that. I personally do them all a little bit different. And I love that too. Another thing that they do is I allow the family to like pick out little charms or anything like that they can put with the leaf to put on the tree. But it's like a sense of legacy, right? When you lose somebody, you just want them to be remembered. You want their name to be spoken. You want them to be seen and heard that they did exist, right? And that they're not just a distant memory. And the tree does that. The tree offers people to be able to walk up and be like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe how many celebrations of life that people go up and they're like, I knew this individual. I mean, how cool is that, right? And then I'll reach out to the family and say, hey, just so you know, at the celebration today, somebody knew your mom, and they'll be like, oh, thank you so much for telling me that, right? There's a sense of legacy to being able to speak a name and to read a name. And I just love that. And I do that for free. That's part of the booking process because, my daughter's name is on there too. Everybody wants their loved one to be remembered, but it is a beautiful tree. I love it.
Yes, I love that tree, and that was the first name I noticed was Miss Sophia, which I love, I love, I love. I have a sister named Sophia, so that is just perfect for me.
Aw.
And again, this podcast is about kind curiosity, and you keep saying things that reiterate why we need kindness. You said when you lose someone, you want them to be remembered. You want their name to be spoken out loud. You want people to know what they meant to you. So every time another session is held at a gathering for you, they see the names of other people so that person is remembered, and I think that is just awesome. I mean, Nowhere else have you seen that. Nowhere else have you done that. Have you seen that done in the industry? So I applaud you for that because you would think, and grief is a personal thing, everybody grieves differently. Some people would say, "Oh, I wouldn't wanna see my daughter's name. Every time I go to work, I would see her name and it would hurt." But for you, it actually brings you comfort, and that is awesome to me. That is something that tells me that every time you have an event and someone comes in and sees Sophia's name, you're putting your heart back on your sleeve to say, "Yes, I know what you're going through. This is my loss, but I wanna help you grieve and get through yours as well."
100%. That's exactly what it is, right? Like losing someone is incredibly hard, no matter who it is, right? Like if you love them, it's a hard loss. And just having people in your corner that are there to say, you know what, it's okay to not be okay. And we're just going to make it through together, right? And one of my favorite things about this venue is it allows me the opportunity, one, to share my grief with them, and two, I'm able to tell them that, you know what, this is hard, but we can do this together. And I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible and as simple as possible. And I didn't really talk about this. If you don't mind, I'm just going to mention one more thing. Um,
Absolutely.
but when you have a traditional funeral in this area, the number one thing that people talk about is the cost and how much of a burden that cost is. And in this area, traditional funerals cost anywhere between 12 to $20,000 on average. And that's one thing that makes grief so hard, right? Because not only are you grieving the person, but you have to somehow come up with $20,000 to have something that is meaningful to you, right? And that's something I wanted to change as well. So when we have our celebrations of life, I offer the space with all of the amenities, and I'm talking table linens and centerpieces and colored lights and candy carts and coffee, flexibility of the space for only $850. So it takes a huge burden off of the family and the individuals, because I mean, it's hard enough to go through losing someone, let alone taking a second mortgage on your house to like do what you want to do, right? So and you know, I know people are like that's too cheap, and that's okay. That's the point of this. It's not about becoming a rich person. It's about helping individuals in the moment when it counts. And that's what this venue does.
I can only imagine the feedback you got from the players that have been in this industry for a while. I can only imagine the hate mail or whatever, because what you've done is you have taken a process that every single person on this planet will have to go through if they live long enough. Every person on this planet will have to go through a mourning process. You have taken that and made it a beautiful thing, but you've taken the stress of cost out of it. And that's not what we see. I'll give you an example. My oldest brother had a son who passed away at, I think, maybe 6 months. He died of SIDS. And I remember going to the funeral home with him and his wife, and I literally had the funeral home provider tell me, because my brother came out to get me because he came out in tears. He said, "I need you to talk to these people." I literally had the funeral home person tell me, "If you don't pay the money, we're gonna keep that baby on ice." And I could not believe the tone this person was using. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, they just lost a child, and you're talking to them like this?" For me, that is the mask that they put up. "Oh, we're so caring," especially when it's a generational thing. "We're so caring, and we're this, and we're pillars of the community." But at the end of the day, in my opinion, the bottom line is the bottom line. So for you to do this for $850, I'm just trying to imagine this, where you get personalized colors. You can bring all your photos, and we're going to talk about that because you display photos in a way that they're not damaged. You get personalized candy if you need it, if you want it. And let's talk about what you do on the outside of the venue. If, let's say, if you had a funeral or a gathering for a veteran, what is the setup? What is the process for a veteran?
Yeah, so veterans, I have two special packages in my venue. One of them is for babies or children. Any parent that loses a child, obviously, that's something near and dear to my heart. So I have a little teddy bear package. I call it it's Sophia's package, and I put teddy bears all over the venue. We're talking like 100 teddy bears all over on the tables and chairs and couches and just a little bit of teddy bear of everything, right? Um, for veterans, they're also near and dear to my heart. My dad is a Marine. I have a big military family, and I very much have a lot of respect for those that enter the military and do service to our country. So, anytime we have a military celebration, I put flags all over the inside of the venue. I light the venue up with red and blue. And then on the outside, it's really cool. I bought some signs. We put signs that say honoring a veteran today. We put those all along the property, and then we also line the property in flags. So when people drive by, it's really cool. A lot of people will honk their horn, give us thumbs up out of the window, which is really cool. But there's something to be said about thanking our veterans and our service community that, has gone through a lot. I mean, a lot of people don't realize what these families go through. And I only know because I was raised by a Marine. They put a lot. They put a lot. They sacrifice a lot. And even if they don't go to war, they're missing from their families for a lot of their lives. And there's a lot of missing moments that people don't realize. So yeah, we line the property in American flags. We put out signs that say honoring a veteran today. We put big banners of flags on the inside, and we light the whole building up with red and blue. And it really turns out cool.
Oh, I just you're just amazing me as we continue to talk, Melissa, you're amazing me. So, have you ever had a service for a veteran and someone come in off the street who didn't know the veteran, who didn't know this was going on, but because they saw the sign, they came in?
Yeah, we've had people pull over, especially that'll be like, "What are all these flags for? I'm a veteran," and
Oh,
they'll
wow.
ask about me, and I'll tell them about, our mission and how we do this special package for free. Again, I don't want to charge people for this stuff because it's not about money. This is about celebrating the person as who they were, as an individual, and that's just one piece. But yeah, we've had people pull over and they'll give us like personal thanks. And I've had a bunch of veterans that would just shake my hand and just telling me how much it meant to them to be recognized in that way.
That
So
is
it is pretty cool.
that is so cool. Again, disrupting the industry standard
Right.
because I know I've gone to lots of funerals and I've never seen an acknowledgement outside the venue for who it was that was being honored at that moment. As a matter of fact, when you go to most services, especially if you go to a funeral home, you're limited to a certain time block. I know you have a 3 hour time block, but they really push you. It's like, okay, we got to get the next one in. It's like an assembly line. I remember having a service for my aunt and it was running long and they, kind of whispered in my ear, you got to wrap it up. And I literally said that to everybody in the place so they would know I'm being rushed. So you have a 3 hour session. And to me, because of what you're doing, it's a celebration of their life and not a mourning. It seems like that 3 hours is enough time. But have you ever had a service where 3 hours was not enough time? And how did you handle that?
Yeah, so we had one individual that passed away kind of young, and we had a good about 400 people come through our venue in that 3 hour block. And one thing that I tell every family that comes through is we don't rush, and here's why. This is a one time event, right? Like this is a one and done. It's not like you repeat this process, and we don't book multiple celebrations per day. We only do one. So whatever day I book somebody on, that's their day, right? So they can come in early and set up. They have their 3 hour block, and we tell them straight out if they start going a little bit over. I do tell them, usually about a half an hour over that, it did end, but we do not push people out. And if by all means, if they want to stay a little bit longer, we just kind of work things out. So I really truly don't believe that again, you're not a cattle call, right? Like these people mattered, their lives mattered. And if you need a little extra time, then you need a little extra time, you know? So
So when you're meeting with the families before the event happens, what is the conversation about? Because you mentioned that you like to get to know the person that is being celebrated? What does that conversation look like?
Well, I always talk about the individual. First and foremost, that's why we're there, right? The family is a bonus, right? But that individual really truly is my customer, the one that passed away. So I want to know all about them, like who they were as an individual. Were they in the military? Did they like hunting? Did they like fishing? What's their favorite color? What's their favorite candy? We had one individual that came through that loved Snickers creamer in their coffee. So I went and got Snickers creamer for the coffee bar, right? So I truly try to learn as most as I can about that individual, and then I talk with the family, of course, like, well, what are your wishes? You know, I know what their wishes are. I know what their life is was like, and what do you guys want? What do you guys envision this to look like? And then we just come up with an action plan, and then I execute it. That's one thing. I take a lot of the decor. I take a lot of the stress off because again, they're going through so much. They don't need a million other things to do. So I just tell them what they need. I give them a little checklist. So I learn about the individual. I give them a checklist on what they need, and then they do their end. I do my end, and then that day, it just always goes off as a great hit.
So let's pivot a little bit. How has a gathering for you changed you personally? Because again, you started this because you and your husband lost your beautiful daughter Sophia, and this is how you go through the grief process. But how has doing this, because it's been almost a year now, or has it been? How long
It's
has
been a
it been?
year. It's been a year
It's been
now.
a year. Wow.
Another year
So
anniversary.
okay, so how has this changed you personally?
Well, I've grown a lot. There's something to be said about having strength and grief. So obviously, she is a huge driving force, and it gives me a reason to get up and do stuff every day, right? Like, I don't have other kids, unfortunately, to give me a reason to keep going. So this venue does that for me. I pour everything into it. It also has made me be strong, if that makes sense. I am a woman business owner, and I know sometimes people don't think that that is a challenge, but it really truly is. When you're a woman business owner, most individuals that I worked with, whether they were contractors or whatever, they would always wanna talk to my husband, right? And it was always like a third wheel thing, and I kept telling them, "You have to be strong because you have to tell them, 'Look, I am the business owner. I'm the one making these decisions, like, you need to come to me,' right? Like, and I will bounce what I need to off of my husband, but I am your contact." So I think it made me grow some strength, if that makes sense. Strength in my grief, strength in being able to help individuals at a moment when it really matters in their life, and strength that, you know, I've been able to stand up and say as in the community that we need a change, and it's a positive change, and it's something that was desperately needed in this area. So I would say it made me stronger in many ways.
I love that. And yes, you're right. Being a woman business owner is a challenge within itself because
Oh,
our society, even now, it's getting worse. It seems to think that women just need to be quiet and sit in the corner and, let the man do everything. So I applaud you on that. As a girl mom, I applaud you on that. What feedback from your community has stayed with you once you've opened this? Because again, I know you got I won't say hate mail, but I know you may have gotten some side eyes from the industry players. But what parts of the community has stayed with you in a positive way? What have people said to you that has just really given you more drive to keep going with this?
Oh, I think the number one thing is every single celebration that we have, people come through the building and we always get pulled aside, both of us, and they just say, "Thank you." Like, everybody is just so unbelievably appreciative of having this venue at an affordable rate. And I love that, you know, somebody said to me that I'm making such a positive change in the community, and that's huge, right? Because everybody wants to make some sort of impact within the community when you're a business owner, and having people tell you repeatedly that what you're doing is making a difference. And it's really great too, because some people say, I don't know if I could have gotten through this moment without you, right? And you don't realize how much little things add up. But when you're there for people when they're going through one of the hardest things in their life and they step aside and say, "You were amazing and we cannot thank you enough." That's huge for me. That makes everything worth it.
That is really awesome, and I just wanna say again, congratulations to
Thank
you. So, what's next for a gathering for you, and what are you dreaming about that feels a little scary to say out loud when it comes to how this is moving forward?
My ultimate dream, I would love to be able to be busy, of course, like busy, busy. I'm just starting out, so that's a key. And somebody recently told me about how they might possibly want to open up something like this in different areas. Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think it would really be cool if I could somehow at some point franchise this,
Mhm.
and not have everybody do kind of their own thing, but really have my dream be manifested in multiple places because I know I'm not the only community in the United States that needs something like this. So if I could do anything, it would be to capture that in multiple areas and be able to help individuals in in many communities throughout the United States.
Yes, you have no idea where I am, it's definitely needed, and I tell you, it would be something that is I know, you're talking about wanting to be busy, it would be nonstop in the area that I'm in, so
That's
we may have to
fantastic.
talk after this, Miss Melissa Maloney. Okay, just closing out, how do you want people to feel when they leave your space, even years from now when they look back? So if Felicia needed to come and have a celebration at your venue, and then 20 years from now, Felicia is reminiscing on that space, what do you want people to remember? How do you want people to feel when they look back at the celebration that you gave them at your venue?
Yeah, I don't want people to per se remember the venue itself. I want people to look back on the experience and say, my mom was honored just the way I wanted her to be honored. My daughter was honored just the way I wanted her to be honored, right? Like that is the beauty of this building is I want it every celebration to be slightly different and special, right? In its own way, because every life is special in its own way. So if people look back 20 years from now and said, you know what? It was the best celebration of life because we captured everything about my mom that day and it was just so special. That's what I want. I want people to be able to walk away with that.
So you actually want the life to be celebrated.
Exactly, right? Yeah, because so
Duh,
many
there's a
times we
concept.
yeah, we say celebration of life, but when funeral homes say celebration of life, what they mean is whatever fits inside this checkbox. you know,
Yeah,
and that's not celebrating somebody's life. That is making money at a time when people are vulnerable and I don't want it to be the same way. I want it to be where you walk away and say, "Man, my mom, she shined today." Right? My nephew shined today. Like this building screamed them, and that's what's important.
that is so beautiful, and I will say again, as someone who's experienced a lot of loss, not the loss of a child, but a lot of loss, that does make a difference because then you as the person who's mourning, you feel seen, you feel like not only did that person's life matter, but that the way you're feeling mattered, and that's very special, and that's not something that we see in the industry today, so again, I applaud you. So, Melissa Maloney, tell us, we know you're in Green Bay. Give our listeners some information about how they can contact you. Are you on social media? What's your social media handle? What's your phone number and where you're located?
Yeah, so I'm located at 822 Cormier Road in Green Bay, Wisconsin, not too far from the Packer Stadium. So if you know the
No.
Green Bay Packers, we're only 1.1 miles away from the stadium, so very
Good.
close to that. My phone number is 920-412-90. My website is agatheringforyou.com. And any of those avenues, you can definitely contact me and we can talk more. And even if people in the area will say, well, when I pass away, this is where I want to be. Well, you can contact me ahead of time. I don't take any payments or anything like that. Let's not stress about that. But I can give information and take down information. So that way, when something does happen, especially if you know it's going to happen, we can do some pre planning so it's a little bit easier on the family.
That's awesome. I
Thank
never
you.
even thought about that because you do see that pre-planning funerals.
Yeah.
Um,
And can I say one more thing? I'm
yes,
so
please.
sorry. So one thing I always recommend individuals, and even if people don't come through me, this is something people should consider, is do like if you know you're gonna pass away, like some people know they have cancer or something like that and they're gonna pass, I always encourage people to one, communicate with the family, their true ones, right? And then secondly, record messages to them that can be played at your celebration of life. So we had one individual I knew that was gonna be passing away, and what they did, it was just so cool. They said a message on the TV to everybody at the celebration of life, and we just played it over and over again at certain times. And what a cool thing to be able to have your loved one communicate with everybody how special you were as a person and who they were. And it was just it's really cool to be able to hear those things and have those things manifest. So that's just a suggestion for anybody.
Oh, no, I love that, Melissa, and because of who I am and my fun nature, Felicia means laughter, I could imagine the message that I would have played, and I'm sure it would either make people laugh or make people angry, but I think that's an awesome idea, especially if you know, like you said, that you're gonna pass away. I now that I think back on it, my aunt, we knew she was gonna pass, she died at 44. I think she would have loved to have done that.
Oh
He
yeah.
he has a crazy sense of humor like me, and I'm telling you, the place would have erupted in laughter, but that's a very good suggestion. I like that. But again, this is why this podcast exists, to highlight people like you who have that kindness in their heart and who have the audacity to be kind in spite of what the industry says you're supposed to do when someone dies. You are saying, no, I'm going to have the audacity to do my own thing and to present kindness when someone has passed. I applaud you, Melissa. I applaud you. I will definitely be talking and shouting from the rooftops about this venue. And again, you and I have to talk because it's needed in my area. But I thank you once again for taking the time out of your day as a busy woman entrepreneur. I applaud you on that aspect as well. And we want to continue to say Sophia's name out loud because it was because of Sophia's short lived life that this venue came to be. Her legacy is that I lived for a while. I gave my mom and dad that love of the offspring, but I also needed to leave a legacy, and this is Sophia's legacy, and we really, really, really thank you for that. And so until next time, everyone, I hope you come back and join us again. Please like, subscribe, and if you like this episode, if you had someone, if you know about an issue you had when you were grieving someone, leave comments below, and maybe we can talk about your story because here on the Kind Curiosity podcast, we have the audacity, the downright audacity to be kind. Until next time.